बेशरम, बदतमीज, छी छी, गंदी, चल हट, तौबा तौबा, ओहो, bad बेटी.
Masala Podcast Live, the Tantra and Kamasutra special, was super spicy. This episode was recorded in front of a live audience at the London Podcast Festival. We explored the power of pleasure. We talked about what stops us from accessing our own pleasure. We did 3 live sensual meditations together to energize our senses, the ears, the taste buds, and then the whole body. You might want to keep a square of chocolate handy for my interactive meditation later on in this show. Let me introduce you to my 2 amazing guests. Seema Anand is a storyteller and mythologist specializing in the Kama Sutra. She's written a gorgeous book about it, The Arts of Seduction. Seema was named Influencer of the Year for Cosmo India 2023. She is the intimacy columnist for Times of India Plus. Amba Kahly is a 5th generation Tantrika Shaman from a long line of healers and priests. Amba's work is all about awakening and harnessing the power of sacred sexuality. Amba was on a Channel 5 TV show, Porn Stars Our Secret World. So sit back, get ready to feel a little tingly as we explore the power of pleasure in this live and interactive episode of Masala Podcast. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Masala Podcast. It's so lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces, and yeah, this is amazing. On a Saturday afternoon, a sunny Saturday afternoon, thank you for giving up your time to come here and do this. If I stumble a little bit, excuse me, because I woke up at 4:30 a.m. today because, and you love this, there were foxes having sex outside my flat. And I'm lying there thinking they're getting more action than I am, for sure. So they were really loud, woke me up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really amped up to do this anyway, so I couldn't go back to sleep. Anyway, welcome everybody, and I am so thrilled to have you here for this very special edition of Masala Podcast. This is the Tantra and Kamasutra special. So it literally couldn't get any sexier or hotter, even if you tried. And I am super chuffed to introduce you to my 2 guests today. To my left is Seema Anand, who's a fond older sister to Masala Podcast. She's always been very supportive. You've probably heard her on my podcast. She's been on the lives before. Seema, thank you so much for joining Masala Podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And on my right is Amba Kahly, who is a Tantra expert. And Amba hasn't been on the podcast before, but she's a huge supporter and fan of me and my podcast. Amba, welcome to Masala Podcast.
Namaste, Sangeeta. And namaste to everyone who has chosen the soul path to be here today. I bow to your souls and your higher self.
So let me start by introducing you a little bit better to Seema and Amba. Seema is a storyteller and a mythologist, which is as impressive as it sounds. Like, what is a mythologist? Like, whoa, I want one of those. And Seema is a Kama Sutra expert. So if there's anything to know about the Kama Sutra, this lady here knows about it. She can talk about it. She can teach you about it. She's even written a book about it called The Art of Seduction, which I have read, and it's beautiful. It's exquisite. Like, her prose is beautiful. The kind of, it's very poetic, and it's one of those books you take a long time to kind of read and absorb. So I've loved it, and I'd urge you to read it. Seema has also been named Influencer of the Year by Cosmopolitan India in 2023. So that's a big one. Yeah. Seema is also sex columnist for the Times of India. Did I remember that correctly? Yeah. I'm so sorry, it's intimacy columnist. Okay, got it.
It's India, babes.
Amba here is a 5th generation Tantrika Shaman, which is as terrifying and beautiful as it sounds. Amba's been on Channel 5. She's a proper TV star on a show about porn stars. That's what Amba's done. Amba comes from a long line of healers. Her dad was a healer, and it goes back a few generations. She'll tell you about it when we talk to Amba a little bit more. Amba's work is all about sacred sexuality. It's about using the power of sexuality within us, within every single one of us in this room and in this world, to transform various areas of our lives, like our work, our relationships, our health. So that's what Amba does. So yeah, I am super, 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 super excited to have these two with me. Now, if you've done any of my podcasts before, you will remember that we start with a little game. Now, in South Asian culture, a lot of you here are South Asian. The thing we really do not talk about is sex. We pretend, like when I grew up in India in the 80s. So on TV, there were always these two flowers that came together. There was a shot, and then the next shot was like a woman with a baby. And you're like, what happened between the flower and it took me a couple of years to work it out. So that's how little we talked about sex in the 80s in India. It's changing a lot. Like, I don't know if any of you follow TV shows like Made in Heaven. There's a lot of explicit sex. And I keep doing screen grabs and sending it to some of my friends to say, this happens now in India. Aren't we amazing? We are talking about sex. But although we may do it on TV, there's some amazing shows like Lust Stories and Made in Heaven, but we're not still doing it in our kind of day-to-day lives. We're not parents aren't necessarily talking about it to their kids. And there's a lot of, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, which exists in British culture as well, but particularly in Indian and Pakistani and South Asian culture. So I thought we would get ourselves warmed up with a little game. So this game is called the Orgasm Guessing Game. And it requires audience participation. You don't have to have an orgasm. You can if you want to. Like, I'll never stop you. Please do. But what I will do is divide the room. So your section A, this side, and your section B, this side. We'll play 5 sounds. And I want you to, I'll give you it's a and B question. Is it this or is she having an orgasm? And you can guess. And at the end of it, I'll just make this up as I go along and somebody gets a prize right at the end of it. So, could we have the first moan, please?
Oh.
Is that lady having her favorite cocktail or has she just had an orgasm? Section A. That didn't sound very sure. Like, cocktail, maybe? Section B, what do we think? Cocktail. That's a lot more like, yeah, that's a cocktail. That's a cocktail kind of sound, not an orgasm kind of sound. If she's having an orgasm, that's a really bad one. Could we have the second sound, please?
Ooh.
We're getting a little bit better. You don't look very sure, do you? So do you think she's had her favorite meal? Or or an orgasm? Come on, let's have like the team answer. I want the team answer. Section A. Ooh, divided. Ooh. Orgasm. Right. Orgasm. Section B. Oh, I like it. We like it. That's a performative orgasm, isn't it? That's exactly what I thought. Performative orgasm. I like that. Could we have the third moan, please? Is that a lady who's very annoyed about her neighborhood auntie gossiping yet again? Or is that her having an orgasm? Let's start with section B this time. Orgasm. You guys like your orgasms, don't you? This bit. I can tell. Yeah, it's a very optimistic group. I like this. Yes for the orgasms. Section A. Orgasm. So this part of the room loves their orgasms, but it's like this quiet, subtle kind of orgasm. And this yeah, baby. Could we have the fourth moan, please? Is that someone sinking into their hot bath after a very long day, or an orgasm? Come on, Section A. Give me your best answer. Bath. Yeah. Section B? I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. You're in charge. You know your shit. Yeah, you know your shit. Okay, last and final sound, please. Yeah. I'm going to ask you to make up this game. Section A, what do you think it is? What's the A? Okay. Section B, what do you think that was? I love it. I absolutely love it. Give yourselves a massive round of applause. You're a fantastically collaborative, engaged, very enthusiastic audience. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for being kind enough for putting up with my little game. So let's, if you're wondering, when does this podcast actually start? Now is when we start. Let's start with you, Seema. So you've written about the Kama Sutra, you've talked about the Kama Sutra, you've explored it, written a book about it. Can you tell us a little bit about, I'm always very curious that this is from our culture, right? This goes back a long way. Can you tell us a little bit about the historical context of this?
Okay, so it's interesting. The Kama Sutra, we think, is written in approximately 300 and something AD. It's written in 7 sections. If you've not come across the Kama Sutra before, it's written at a time when women were not taught how to read or write. So it's written for men. And it's written for wealthy men to teach them how to live their best lives. It's written in 7 sections. The first section is on how to build your home. So how do you pick a location? How many bedrooms do you have? How many beds do you have in your bedroom? Because back then, you didn't have sex on the same bed on which you would sleep. And if you were very wealthy, you had foreplay on one bed, you had sex on another, and then you slept on a third. It was all about energies. So it was about how many hours should be spent getting yourself massaged. It was about, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of lung issue today, so I'm also hiccuping it just a little bit. I did not even have foxes having sex outside my window. Is just, yeah. Anyway, the first section is all about how to build and decorate your house. The second section is about pleasure. It's the only section that interests me, and it's the only section that's relevant today. The third section is about how to find the perfect wife. The fourth section is about how to marry the perfect wife. The fifth section is about how to seduce another man's wife, because it was a political thing. If her husband was very powerful, the idea was that you got to his power through her, so it's a very important section. The sixth section is about the rules around courtesans, because around this sort of time, courtesanery was legal, and there was a ministry for it, and there were a lot of laws, which were very complicated. So the sixth section delineates, it tells you exactly what it is, and the seventh section is quite a daft kind of section, which might have been added later, and it's all about lotions and potions, and it's really, it's a pointless kind of thing. Now, I believe that the second section, which is on pleasure, it's the only place in the Kama Sutra where both men and women are addressed. And the author of the Kama Sutra says in the introduction that people ask me, women are uneducated, they're stupid, they don't know anything. Why are you addressing this section to them? And he says, well, men need to be taught women understand this automatically. And hence, he's added both sides of it. But basically, I believe, through a lot of other stories that we have in our ancient past, that this section was written by a woman or by women, because the Kama Sutra doesn't actually mention the act of sex. It talks about pleasure over and over and intensively. And it's all about how you increase the pleasure to a point where it raises your being, your consciousness. I mean, it's about bringing you to a higher level of feeling. And so for me, sorry, I've actually forgotten what was the original question.
Feel free to talk.
Historically. Yeah, so I really do believe that every 1,000 years or so, there's a little push for women's rights, for feminism. And I think the Kama Sutra was really trying to change the narrative of women in the place of sexuality. This, people think that this is a time when India was just so amazingly open. We were feminists, but never in the way that we think of feminism today. This is a time when a lot of other texts refer to women in exactly the same misogynistic terms that we've gotten used to today. So when they talk about the pleasure of women, they were actually trying to change the way that people thought about women. And in some of the translations, it says, like Vatsyayan says, that men have thought that pleasure was their privilege for the longest time. Why should they suddenly change? Why should you suddenly say, well, it's time for women to have pleasure, and you suddenly change? So he says, I've made it aspirational. So he tells the men that if you can pleasure your woman fully, your business will become better. And then he explains how that would happen. Then he says, if you can pleasure your woman fully, you will become a better warrior. And then again, he explains how you would become a better warrior. And do you know, actually, this was such an important point that they put forward at this stage, that there were battle positions based on lovemaking positions back then. There was, so for instance, the most popular one was one called the Lata Yuddham, which means, Yuddham, which is the word for battle, and Lata is love. It's based on the standing position. So where if you have, it says that in hand-to-hand combat, if you are to wrap yourself around your enemy like a woman wraps herself around a man in the standing position, you will be able to overpower him more easily. So, so this, and even before, the Kama Sutra is not a one-off. There are several thousand versions of the Kama Sutra over the centuries. The Kama Sutra, as we know it, was not written originally as an original. The author says he's copied and pasted bits that he likes from 1,000 years before. So before the Kama Sutra, before the Brahminical age, India has about 1,000 years of Buddhist rule. And so the Buddhist Kama Sutra actually has 72 skills, out of which I think about 14 of them were battle positions based on lovemaking positions. So historically, I think it is actually an extremely important text, not just for all of that, but this is where the vocabulary of pleasure comes from. And it was this vocabulary, it's a treatise. Most people think that they can translate a text and read it. This is a treatise. You can't. You need to understand not just what the word means, but what is the narrative behind the word. So sorry, I know I'm going to stop over here. I'm going to stop. This is the book that inspired 2,000 years of classical literature in India. So our Sanskrit and Tamil literature was inspired by this from the vocabulary that it takes. It's known as Shringhar Bhasha, which is the Shringhar. Today we think of as ornamentation. Originally, it referred to all feelings of love. So it literally, I don't know if you know any of the Indian authors from, let's say, a couple of thousand years ago, but Kahly was very, very important. All of them wrote based on this particular set of words and vocabularies. So it's an extremely important text. It's been brushed under the carpet because it's become a book about positions. We started off originally with only 18 positions. We now have several hundred. People wonder how that happened. It's because furniture changed. It literally. Yeah, as the sitting position changes, as the sitting tools change. But so historically, it's written at the same time as the very first ecumenical council of the Catholic Church, which is set up in 325 AD, somewhere in Turkey. And as this is set up, the ecumenical council, the first thing they start to do is talk about how bad and sinful is the idea of pleasure. And by 342 AD, they have passed their first law banning oral and anal sex, because that's just for pleasure. At the same time, the Kama Sutra is being written across the oceans on the banks of the river Ganges. And the longest chapter in the Kama Sutra is on oral sex. There's a lot of back and forth, I have to say, on it. We'll talk about it later, maybe. But it's a fascinating text. There's a lot of pros and cons to it, etc. But it's seen as one of the most pleasurable things, and hence it's talked about. But, I just think that the world grew from there. And we're in a twilight zone in between this. It's sinful and it's beautiful.
I think every time I hear you talk, and also when I read, I think about how in the world now, whether Western, Eastern, whatever, sex is this kind of like almost an animalistic thing that we're supposed to do. But if you look at the ancient texts, it was this very refined art that we were all supposed to aspire to. And I'm sure Seema will talk about this more later, but as a man of the world or a person of the world, you played a musical instrument, you rode a horse, you did this, you learned a couple of languages, and you learned how to have good sex and pleasure your partner. And that was expected of you. So it was from this evolved skill, it just kind of became this thing that we don't talk about, and even now we do, but it's all a bit, we don't know, it's all a bit dirty, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Talking about historical things, I'd love to come to you, Amba. Now, I've heard Amba talk a lot about her own personal history, and it really fascinates me. Like I think I said when I was introducing you, Amba comes from like 5 generations of Tantra healers. So I'd love for you to share with me and the audience your kind of education around Tantra. How that happened, your dad, because you've told me a little bit about that. If you could share, that would be really good.
First, I would say, Ya Devi Sarva Bhushteshu, Shakti Rupena Samastita, Namastasei, 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 Namo Namaha. This is a beautiful Shakti energy in every one of you that has been drawn today here to hear about something phenomenal. Because if your soul didn't choose this, you wouldn't be here. Do you agree? So I bow to your your knowledge and everything, because everyone is powerful enough and has the ancestral knowledge through your DNA, why you're here and what are you awakening. So this is where the 5th generation of Tantric Shaman comes into place. I had to find this Shaman name because coming into the Western world, Tantra means just sex, just positions, as Seema says, nothing else. But actually, Tantra means activating your DNA and healing your generational trauma, what your ancestors went through, so your next generation can be helped by you. This is so powerful because everyone comes through a yoni. I would like to know who didn't come through a yoni. You know? That is where the goddess
Yoni is
resides.
a vagina, if anybody doesn't understand.
Yeah. Yoni is a vagina. It's a sacred process that a divine feminine and a masculine, mother and father, doesn't matter what the trauma you have around them, it's a divine process of love making, and when they hit the ecstasy and the cosmic energy, you come as an intruder into this world because you know to resolve the unresolved that lineage is suffering as a soul. You're so powerful. But what happens? Maya, illusion. As you take the birth through the, whatever the formation of 9 months, you're covered with Maya in the womb. The communication becomes so difficult with your own mother, And when you come out, it's full of light that you have never seen and hits you. And you're like, ah! And then you decide, like, how can I communicate with my own mother that doesn't even know how to handle the light that I bring in? It's very deep, I understand. But that is Tantra. Tantra is all about you accepting that you have the power, you have the knowledge, and you know why you have come. But it is about awakening that knowledge within you. So this is where I come as a 5th generation, because my dad was a tantric. And to have Tantra with a male, that is your own dad, is phenomenal, I tell you. Because the Western world or the other world tells you Tantra means this, that, this. No, it's not. It's about respecting your own body and understanding why you have come into this world. Awakening the knowledge of the goddess and your own parents worshipping you, because you are the change maker and the chain breaker. Does it make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. I wanted to just pick up something you said there, Amba, about in the West primarily, like Tantra is about Sting having sex for 20 hours. Right? Like you ask 9 out of 10 people say, yeah, Tantra, yeah, isn't that what Sting and Trudy do? Yeah? So there's a perception in the West that it is about sex. There's like, if you Google Tantra, you'll see like a zillion workshops and classes and whatever, all of which are about sex. And the idea that you just go into like a room and you either have sex with a bunch of people that you don't know, or you get naked or whatever, and that seems to be the kind of common narrative. Now you, Amba, talk about Tantra very, very differently. Could you explain to our audience what you mean when you say we all carry energy, we are sexual beings? Can you explain that and what Tantra means to you?
Okay. In my world, Tantra means accessing your power through the Kundalini energy, activating your sexual energy. Okay? We are all product of sex. When the Divine Mother and Father came together, it was complete sex and divine love, and that's how universe has formed. And this is where Shiva Shakti energy comes. But it is not about having random sex with anyone and anyone everywhere. Like, you just find someone and you want to have sex and you feel Tantra. No. Lots of people have the misconception that when you go into a Tantra event or something, you got to become naked, you got to comfortable with your body, your nipples have to raise up, and someone has to suck your nipples. No. Or someone has to ooze out orgasm. Or you're not right for this event, you're not prepared. Fuck off. That's not what Tantra is. Tantra is making you comfortable, worshipping you as a goddess and a god, accessing that your choice matters, and it will take time, and your ancestors have to come in to help you raise your energy, because ancestors are someone that lived before you and living after you. They have the complete knowledge, and that is where you activate your DNA. And it's quite deep. Yes, everybody who comes to me, like, I come from a secret world. I work with a lot of like celebrities and everybody, so I'm not even supposed to take their name because of my contract. But it is about accessing your original knowledge that we all have through the yoni. Worshipping the yoni. A man needs to have a yoni to really manifest what he wants in his life. And now, can you believe it? How powerful your yoni is. Yes. Exactly. And it is also a sacred worship that you accept that you can be worshipped and allow the man to worship you.
Which is such a beautiful way to look at it, because with a lot of what we are taught about sex in the world is that we only deserve pleasure as women when we are thin enough, whatever enough, young enough, you put whatever enough in there. it's like sexual pleasure and orgasm or any pleasure is only to be earned as women. So it feels like we're in this constant, like I don't know, like an escalator, and pleasure is right at the end. But baby, you're not going to get there until you've lost 10 kilos, unless you've bought this makeup, owned this designer dress, whatever. And we're sold this idea. And I think, to me, it's very radical when I hear someone like Amba talk or Seema talk about us carrying this energy within us. Every single one of us in this room has that power, has that energy. But to me, it's sad that the kind of world's kind of taken it away from us. We're almost disenfranchised from accessing what we already have. And to me, the journey of pleasure, of sexual pleasure and pleasure in the world is about going back to who we were before the world fucked it up for us, you know? Seema, I'd love to come to you and talk to you about the Western understanding of the Kama Sutra. I'm sure you could talk about this a lot.
So try and keep it as short as possible.
No. Expound.
So, as I said, whether it's with Tantra or whether it's the Kama Sutra, and a lot of times people get confused that it's, you kind of superimpose
they think
one
it's
over
the same thing.
They think it's the same thing.
It's not.
It's because a lot of people believe that it's all about, that both things are about positions, about sex, and about vaginas. I think vaginas are fabulous, of course, we all do. But, there is just so much, they are. I mean, let's be
Beautiful.
real,
What are
they
you laughing about?
I keep saying to women say to me, how can I make it smell better down there? Okay. The idea is that the natural smell of a healthy vagina is the sexiest smell in the world. But we don't know that. And every time I try and say it, I get trolled like you would not believe. But the point is that we have all tried to make it smell better at some point because you believe that fragrance is not worthy of being in the room with you. And I mean, when I was younger, I also tried to perfume myself down there once. I was going on a date and I thought I was perfuming the rest of me. I put some down there. I have not been in so much pain that I can remember. I have had 3 children since then. I had to cancel my date. Oh my God, it was horrible. So yeah, note to self, never ever use perfume down there, ladies. Never. But anyway, the Western world thinks of both Kama Sutra and Tantra as all about positions and all about sex. I had to go and study. I had a grant from the British Museum, from Cambridge, to go work on a particular form of worship. In Tantra, you have the idea of the ritual worships of different parts of your body. I wouldn't say that it's different parts of your body necessarily, but it's about the energies that different parts of you carry. And I actually gave it up halfway because it was a terribly boring bit of field work, and I instead found myself a tantric teacher who I lived with and learned with. But interestingly, we have the same idea about the Kama Sutra, which is that it's all about positions. Now, how it all starts when it comes to positions, and I just want to say this so that you'll know it for future reference. Vatsyan, the supposed author of the Kama Sutra, says that sex should always be pleasurable. If it's not supremely pleasurable, it's no point having sex. Really, it's no point. And the first thing towards really pleasurable intimacy is that your sexual organs should synchronize in size. But almost nobody ever went out on their first date saying, I'm swiping right, but could you send me the size of your... And the thing is that it could well have happened as well. So they do tell us in the Kama Sutra that it is impossible to measure the vagina, that you can measure the penis, which is done by 3 fingers, 6 fingers, or 9 fingers. But you cannot measure the vagina because it is an elastic organ. And so basically, he says that if 2 people come together and then their sizes don't match, if the woman is too big and the man is too small, there's going to be no friction. If the woman is too small, the man is too big, it's just going to be painful. Where is then the pleasure? And so the positions were created to synchronize the sizes between people. And that was the original idea. And some of the positions, well, there's one in particular that I still haven't worked it out. Like I said, the Kama Sutra is written in metaphor. It can take you years to, I mean, it's taken me 2 years to work out what it said about the sitting position. I'll tell you about that later. But there is one position that I have never been able to work out. It's basically, and I'm very close to it, but I haven't quite worked it out. So by next year, I'll be able to tell
We're doing another Masala Podcast live.
Same time, same place. Yes, next year, ladies and gentlemen. But there's one where the woman is, no, the man is underneath. The woman sits on top, she penetrates, and then she goes round and round. I still haven't... Exactly round and round. Well, on him. Penetrated and on him. Yeah, okay. On him. And, I mean...
I'm trying to think about this.
Yeah, it's just... Okay, one version of the Kama Sutra says that she bends over a little bit, and she uses her hands to go around, and she drops kisses on him as she goes around, which is all very beautiful. I just can't figure out why you would want to do that. But it's called the churning, and they say that that's the most exciting motion for the vagina, not the penis. But anyway, so we knew somebody who had a Thai girlfriend, and she used to actually tie something to the fan on top and make herself go round and round. And that's what I grew up with, this idea of somebody sort of just going around. I have no idea. But like I said, there is just so much out there that is misconceived. It's not properly understood because, of course, people don't know what the words mean when you use them. And we're going to come to this later, so I won't say very much more. But one of the words that's used very regularly in our literature is the jingling girdle. She wore the jingling girdle. The women came with their jingling girdles. And if you don't know what it means, it's just a jingling girdle. But as you are about to find out, because it's your lucky day, like Amba said.
Watch this space.
Your soul drew you here for a reason. And this is going to be the reason. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I can't wait. Amba, coming back to you. So this is our culture, right? This is our root. Tantra, Kama Sutra, Vatsyayana, all of this. Where did we change, and why is there still so much shame and taboo around sex when it's part of our culture, it's so natural to us? Like, where does it come from, according to you?
Are you all ready to listen to this? It's going to freak you out, but it's the matriarchy. It's very deep. You know, a mother or a female can't handle other females' pleasure if she is sounding so high in the house or in the neighborhood. I'm sorry to say this. And this is where the attack comes, female to a female. I'm sorry, but it's deep ingrained. Because if a female is not having enough sex from the male, she doesn't want the other female to have it enough. So she controls her son, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, the in-laws, and it's quite deep. But what they do not understand is they have the power to explore their own sexuality, but it's a taboo. You can't talk to a man how. For example, like you get a new car. You need to have a manual, right? It's the same for a man. A man needs to have a manual about you, and you tell him how to drive you. Which point does he needs to look or press? But you're so shy enough, like, no, I can't say this. He need to explore himself, and he needs to understand me. How can he understand you? You're completely a new thing for him, right? Why can't you know about yourself first? How many of you in this room know about their own vagina? And how many of you have let someone worship it?
Only one. Come on. We've done better than that.
And how many of you have given the manual to a man? This is how you drive me crazy. And I need to be high. See, a lot of us can't even speak about it, baby. How can a man understand? Because he comes from a womb, right? He comes from a mother too. He can't be educated by a mother how to drive her crazy. So why don't you understand that you need to know about yourself so that you can teach him how to drive him crazy. When I do a matchmaking, by the way, I really talk about what do you really need about, in bed? How big would you like the penis to be? How depth would you like the vagina to be? It's a crazy question when people get shocked, but it's an important question because by the end of the day, no matter how rich you are, you got to be satisfied, right? Yes, no, maybe? And that's how everything goes wrong. You are not allowed to talk openly about what you want or what the other person wants, and it is told to be assumed. There's no assumption when it comes to bed. You got to be very clear so that the boy knows or the girl knows how to really make each other happy and openly talk about it. It's quite deep, I do understand. But do you understand how deep you are? That's the question.
It's not surprising, though, when you look at how we grew up in the world, how we're brought up in the world. I don't know how many of you, when you were young, like one of the first words I was taught was aye, which is like dirty in Malayalam. Or I say this a lot, chi-chi. So if a kid runs around, the first time a kid's running around, and children are beautiful, they're innocent, running around without clothes, and the parent goes, chi-chi, that's dirty. So you're implying that the human body, in its beauty and its purity, is dirty. And anything a child does, whether they're touching their privates or walking around naked, is told to be dirty. So the idea that our bodies are dirty, that our parts are dirty is so deeply ingrained within us that then it's no surprise that as we grow up, we're not going to go there because it's dirty, it's forbidden, it's all of these other things. It's a little bit probably better growing up in the West. Like I grew up in India. Masturbation as a topic just never existed. I remember these girls asking me in school, my friends would say, do you masturbate? I don't masturbate. And I'm like, no, I don't either. I'm not telling anybody this. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is this idea that that's deviant, you see? Sex, pleasure, is taught to us as deviant behavior, when in fact it's the most natural, beautiful thing in the world. You see children, babies touching themselves. Have you ever seen a baby? They just do it because they're not having sex. They're just like, oh, it feels good, so that's what I'm doing. And before all the conditioning and all the crap comes in, they are doing what feels good. And slowly, I feel like from that age to when we're older, and if you're a woman, oh my God, that's 10 times worse. Not that it's easy for men.
Can I say something
Yeah?
here? Men, yeah? I do a lot of therapy, Tantra therapy. So one of the things a man really expressed is, he was a baby, and his dick got erected. And his mother gave an apple so that he can rub and satisfy himself, and said, you can't have this. This is so shameful. And since then, he got traumatized about his own personal parts. It's natural for a man to get erected, right? Even as a baby, but they don't understand. And if anybody sees a man penis is erected, oh, she, shut him off. He's nasty. Why do we think that? It's a natural kundalini energy. When the blood rushes there, it gets erected. And by the way, I want to share something very personal. I've been a single mother for almost 13 to 14 years. I have a daughter who is right here. She's very open.
Filming as a good daughter should.
And you know what? When I became a single mother, whenever I used to dance, I used to go high. And then I used to tell my mother, Mom, I'm going to come now. She said, good, you come. You need to come. And it's good. And if you can't come, do something so that you can come. Because come is so important so that you can release the anger and the frustration that you had and gone through the society, what it named, shamed, and blamed you for being a single mother. And this was openly discussed with my dad. That's the beauty of being a fifth generation. I used to talk openly with my dad about my sexual feelings, about my nipples getting erected. And he was so like a god himself, like a Shiva. He used to tell me, like, baby, this is what it happens and it's natural. Hence, for me to judge anyone, it's very challenging. You know, it's Sangeeta. It's very challenging to judge anyone because you have a story and it matters because your pain matters. Behind every pain, there is a powerful story that your ancestors went through that couldn't break, and hence you're feeling the pain so you can break through the chakras and the system. I know it's very deep, but it's the truth.
Seema, I wanted to speak to you about how we can use, so we've got this amazing knowledge. And I keep saying this, anybody that says sex isn't part of our culture obviously hasn't read our texts, right? This is where it comes from. But how can we then take this knowledge that's old and historic and ancient to now? What could we do?
Okay, so this is interesting because this is the question gets asked all the time. That, when I do talk about the Kama Sutra, and like I said, we're going to actually share a couple of bits with you that's literally just going to blow your mind. And then people are like, okay, that's gorgeous, but it's kind of abstract. How do we make it real and part of today's life? And I actually had the privilege of, so I've been trying to explain this in my own little way, clearly not very well. I realized I'm not that amazing a communicator as I thought I was. But I had the privilege of working with somebody called Shan Budram, who is based in Canada. She runs a podcast called Lovers and Friends podcast. And she's like, I think she's the intimacy expert for Bumble and so on. And she was able to put it into words that I haven't been able to do in a really, really good way. So should we kind of go into some of it now, and then we can, should I talk about a couple of the things now? Okay, brilliant. So I was talking about the Jingling Girdle, which we're going to do as a little experiment later as well. But basically, women in the time of the Kama Sutra were taught how to have sex, how to, can I stand up and do this? Just so that, will I throw everybody's cameras off if I stand up? I just want to see everybody's face when I tell you this. So women were taught how to have sex, how to perform those positions by how the jewelry moved on their body, how specific pieces of jewelry moved on their body. And so this idea of the jingling girdle. Now, in ancient times, nobody was, in every culture across the world, women were not supposed to be on top. It was considered taboo because that's the position of power. Kama Sutra says you could be on top, but you basically had to make sure that you only move your hips. You don't move the upper part of your body, you move your hips. And so women would wear this girdle around their upper waist with lots and lots of bells on it, and make sure that the bells did not make a sound. Okay? Now, hence the jingling girdle. For the sitting position, for instance, it was the 7-string necklace of pearls. For a different position, it was, there was flowers in the hair for something else, etc. Now, the idea was that each piece of jewelry had to move in a particular way so that you got your body to move like that. Now, the first time I remember telling a friend of mine, a very good friend, about this particular thing, about how you got up there and you only moved your hips, and wow, isn't that amazing? And she got really angry, and she said, well, here we go, typical. The woman has to learn how to do this, right? The woman has to learn how to just move her hips while he just lies over there. And I kept trying to explain to her, no, this was more about the woman's pleasure because, there is a different, our bodies are made in such a way, physiologically, you can only get pleasure in certain manners. Everything does not give every person pleasure. And just trying to explain this to her, it wasn't getting very far. Shan really put this well, which is why I said I'm so happy that she came along into my life. She was saying that now it's been proved that when women just bounce up and down when they're up on top, when they bounce up and down, it doesn't the penis doesn't come into contact with the clitoris at all. It doesn't come into contact with any of the side walls with enough pressure to press any points of excitement. Whereas if you grind back and forth, that engages the clitoris. So it was all about getting the position right so that it was more pleasurable for the woman. And just to add to it, what they would also do is that when you were on top, you wore long earrings, which were meant to swing in a certain arc across the cheek. Now, oftentimes I would get people to try this. We put long earrings on them and say, okay, now try and do, swing it. And most people are like this. It takes a bit of doing to bring yourself to that point where you will put your head down at the correct angle, and you will then swing that so that you get that right. And once you get that right, and once you get the bells right, you've got the position right. Now, just see the difference. I just think it is so utterly beautiful, the idea that you're teaching somebody how to have sex. You're not just throwing them into the deep end. You're not just saying, okay, here's a gladiator pit. Go, do whatever. You're teaching them. But you're teaching them in the most utterly beautiful way that you can imagine. And I think that's what we have lost. When I first started to study Tantra as well, it says, and this is from a Chinese text, because the Buddhist Tantra, of course, predates Hindu Tantra. And it says that heaven and earth understand how to mate right, which is why they are immortal. Humans have lost that art, and we have become mortal. Now, I don't know I guess what they're trying to say here is that it's not so much about the pleasure of the moment, but the fact that it gets you to that point of understanding your own body, understanding your own pleasure. And when pleasure is seen as an energy. So when you have that pleasure awakening you, it's for everything. Monotony, it's what deadens you. Pleasure wakes up all your different nerve endings. And that's what makes you come alive. So whatever that pleasure might be for. I'm now going to sit down. Because
I think you did really well. Deserves a round of applause for that. I think this is the perfect time to talk about practical exercises. So everyone's going to take their clothes off now.
Ooh!
No. So I wanted this live to be not just discussing the erotic arts of our culture, but also to give you a little bit of a feel or an understanding of what this feels like in the body. And I'm so glad you talked about pleasure as a broader concept, because again, I think in the West and everywhere now, pleasure is just sex, but pleasure is this broad, beautiful thing. Walking in the sunshine, feeling the sun on your skin, feeling rain, smelling a fragrance that you love, lying in the bath, feeling warm bath water, listening to, the music that you love. Our senses are incredibly powerful. But we sadly live in a world where we're, glued to these little screens. We're shut off. We don't really experience the pleasure that our bodies hold. So I wanted us to do 3 exercises today. I wanted for you to have a taste, really, of using your senses, of experiencing, even if it's for 5 minutes here, what that feels like when you're in a room, when you're kind of in that zone, when you're led by people like us into that exercise. So we're going to first start with some oral pleasure.
Ooh, okay.
Oral as in, I tricked you there, A-U-R-A-L, not O-R-A-L. So Seema talked about the Jingling Girdle. Now, I think it's one of those most very beautiful kind of extracts from the Kama Sutra. I've heard Seema talk about it before, and she explains it beautifully. So I thought, why not do an exercise with you where we explain to you what that kind of sounded like, what that felt like. But before we go there, I want us to sort of ground ourselves for a minute. Like, everybody, put your feet down on the floor. Close your eyes for a second. take a breath in. Let it out. When you take your next breath, feel it in the pit of your stomach. Like a nice long deep inhale. And exhale through the mouth. And a third in breath. And exhale through the mouth again. Now feel the points of contact between your body, your feet touching the floor. Feel that connection with the earth. Your bottom sitting on the chair. Feel how your body sits in the chair. Feel how the chair holds you. Sit back at the chair. Feel how the chair touches the back of small of your back. See what it feels like at the top of your head. Behind your closed eyelids. What's the light? Do you see anything? Do you see any light? Smell the room. What does the room smell like? It's crisp, cold air. Any other smells, fragrances? What does your mouth taste like? Was it the drink you had before? Was it something else? When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Seema, over to you. So I will be the assistant, the able assistant like those magicians' tricks.
And here we have my beautiful assistant.
I will just jingle the girdles.
Okay, so I think what we'd like to do is try and give you a little idea of what it might have felt to just be in that position, just in your mind. Now, once again, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes in a moment. The gentleman as well. Now, with the gentleman in the room, I'd like you to imagine your partner on top of you. And with the ladies in the room, or whichever way you want to look at it, but this one, I do need the women to be on top. Okay? So I'd like you to close your eyes. Now, the idea of this is that when you think of pleasure, sometimes we try and explain it with words. I was told that this particular idea of the jingling girdle is not just supposed to be a technique, it's not just supposed to be a practice, it's supposed to be a memory. Because when you do this, there is no way that you can actually replicate the excitement, the thrill, the pleasure that you're going to feel in words. So it's about feeling it. And then this particular term is your little memory switch almost, where you come back to it, you think of this word, and it brings you back to that incredible point of pleasure that you would have felt at some point. So, are we ready? Eyes closed, please. You've taken your position on top. Now, you have the girdle around you. We're not going to be too prescriptive. If it jingles, it jingles. Okay? The climbing on is going to take a bit of jingling. What I do need you to think about is literally think of one sound that you hear. Think of you moving up according to the sounds that you hear. So follow the sounds. Follow your movements in your mind with the sounds. So can we have a little bit of the... Okay. And now you settle on top. Take your position. Actually understand exactly how your body is going to be positioned. Understand that if you're only going to grind, if you're only going to move your hips, exactly where your knees are going to be, you're not going to have your weight on your knees. The very first time I tried it, I thought it was going to be all about my knees. It hurt a lot. Okay. So understand where you're putting the weight. Look at your partner below you. look at that face. We very seldom look at the other person's face when we make love. A lot of us are nervous, embarrassed almost. And now I want you to very gradually move that body. Where is your head moving to? Have you got your head in the right position? I don't want your head going upwards. It has to be parallel to your partner's face. And now we're just literally going to give you, all I want you to do is think with each breath. You're not actually going to be moving. Each breath is going to be with the sound of the kungrus. And that's your actual movement. Stop for a moment. Can you feel your head going back and forth? Can you feel the earring graze against your cheek? I want you to actually visualize the earring as it grazes against your cheek. We're going to actually bring your breathing back to us now, because in a moment we're going to open our eyes. But just take a couple of minutes. Just see where your breathing went to. We're always being told that if you keep your breath in sync with your movements, you're able to control, you're able to move your pleasure around your body more easily. I think the really important thing is here, just focus on the breath going in and out, and imagine your body moving with your breath. Very slowly, if you could start to open your eyes. I don't know how many of you allowed yourself to go into that point. Because sometimes, not just sometimes, very often, we're so frightened of the pleasure that we might feel that we don't actually let our mind go into that space at all. All I want you to do is, when you go back home, find yourself one little tiny tinkling bell. Lie down in bed. Don't do very much. Close your eyes and just actually tinkle that bell every now and then and dream of this. Just think of it. That's all I want you to do. And you will be, you're actually going to be pretty surprised, but in a couple of weeks, you're going to find that you start to associate your pleasure. Even if what does happen is that you come, while you're doing this exercise, you squeeze your thighs together and you bring yourself to orgasm just by what you've imagined. But very soon, you're actually going to be associating this with your pleasure. And it's quite an exciting thing to be able to do, because it just takes it from this point of being a sinful, dirty thing into something that's quite beautiful and deliberate. So it's not something that you're doing really quickly because you need to get it over with, or, oh my God, I hope nobody catches me, but you've made time for it. And it's just that very first step to changing how you think. And I really hope it works for you.
That was beautiful, wasn't it? Give Seema a round of applause, please. You can jingle me anytime, baby.
Absolutely. Jingle all the way.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Right, I'm going to pass this around.
Sorry, while you're passing that around, I just want to finish by saying that
Take a piece and pass it around.
the idea of, we talk about the yoni as the vagina. In fact, the yoni is a triangle. It is your, it's where your energies intersect. So it's the intersection of energies inside your body. This is the vaginal triangle is possibly the most powerful. It's the creative matrix of the universe. So we think of that, but really we have 52 yonis inside our body, with 52 spaces where the energies intersect with each other. You have the potential of more excitement that you can even begin to imagine. And I go back to this idea not because I'm trying to get people back into thinking about only orgasms. This is only about orgasms. It's not. Like I said, pleasure is actually an energy. So the more you raise the pleasure inside you, the more alive you become. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you very much. Meditation number 1. sensual meditation number 1. So for the second meditation, you'll find there's a little piece of chocolate. So take a piece of chocolate, take 2 if you want, like nobody's stopping you. There's dark chocolate and milk chocolate, although why anyone would eat milk chocolate is beyond me. But please pass it around. What I wanted us to do with these 3 meditations with you is to understand that the root of all this pleasure, all this sensuality is within us. And it is very much opposite to the message we're being given by media, by magazines, by TV, that you've got to do something to access pleasure. And women particularly, and men now more and more as well. Unless you do X, unless you weigh a certain way, unless you look a certain way, unless you've got, I don't know, if you're young, you're beautiful, that's the only time you're allowed to have sex or orgasms or pleasure in any form. And that's one. And the other is to expand our lexicon of pleasure. I want you to really slow the body down, which is very hard in the time we live in because we're constantly on our devices. Like, I'm like this as well. You know, you're hooked. They've got us, addicted to these apps. Every second, if you are not looking at your screen, you're like, oh my God, what does that sound like? Classic addiction, except we don't know we're addicted. So we're walking around in this like hyper adrenalinized, cortisol kind of way. And sensual pleasure or any pleasure only comes to us when we can relax that fight or flight mode that we're in. And most of us are in that. I know I am. The opposite part of the body, which is what you need to relax, is the tend and digest system. So there's the fight or flight, which was created for us to, tiger chases us, we run. You get a spike of adrenaline, you run, and then it's over. Unfortunately, we live in an age where we're constantly, we're seeking the dopamine, we're on adrenaline. So it's very difficult for our bodies to relax. And unfortunately, pleasure, sexual pleasure, any kind of pleasure only comes when you're in the tend and digest, relaxed frame of mind. So the hope is today that with these 3 exercises, you can get a little bit of an insight. And it's just a tiny, this is just an hour and a half, of what can happen and what is possible for us as human beings when we start to get in touch with our own bodies and our senses. So Seema took you through an auditory, oral kind of experience and a meditation. I want to talk to you about the sense of taste. So we've got sound, taste, eyesight, touch, right? Now, with the way we are, we're like eating all the time. We're like picking something up, putting it in our mouths, watching TV, turning on whatever. And we're not really tasting. We're not tasting life. We're not tasting food. We're not tasting the energy that is around us. So all this is a piece of chocolate. And I want us to really go into that taste with that piece of chocolate to understand this universe of taste that is there for us, except we're not accessing it. So again, close your eyes, please. Take that little piece of chocolate, put it on your right hand, and just close your eyes. Everyone got a piece of chocolate? You can have more. There's a whole bunch of, there's extras going around. Everyone good with the chocolates? Great. Have 2, have 4, it's okay. So put the piece of chocolate on your right hand for me and close your eyes. Now for a second, you can feel the warmth of that chocolate on your skin. Is it melting? Is it quite hard because it's quite chilly here? What does it feel like on your hand? Now slowly, I want you to put that piece of chocolate into your mouth. Keep your eyes closed. And let it melt. Don't bite it. Do not bite it. Let it sit on your tongue. What is that first taste? Is it sweet? Is it milky? Is it melty? What does that feel like? Once the chocolate starts to melt, how is that different from the first second it went into your mouth? What does that first taste remind you of? Our senses are very attached to our memories. So for me, like when I eat milk chocolate, it always reminds me of being a child, cutting a square of chocolate into 3 pieces because I had 2 brothers and we were very, very particular that every square had to be exactly the same. So what does it remind you of? What is your association with this particular piece of chocolate? Now broaden that memory. When was the last time you had a really good taste experience, and not just chocolate? What was it you last ate that you loved? And your senses kind of went like, oh my God, I love this. For me, it's very dark chocolate. It's things like wasabi, like I love really strong flavors. But what is it for you? Mango pickle, lemon. These are the things that I get very excited about in terms of taste. But what is it for you? It could be a subtle flavor. It could be a strong flavor. What are your taste memories? Now roll your tongue around the chocolate. Can you feel it melting? Feel how warm your mouth is. Feel how gooey the chocolate's getting. Now think for a moment, is there any emotion that's coming into your body when this chocolate is in your mouth and you're moving it around and you're thinking of these memories? Because memories always evoke emotions within us. What's the emotion? And it could be anything. We do not judge. Is it joy? Is it sorrow? Is it pain? Is it anger? What is it? Just let it come to you and allow it to stay with you. Now bite into the chocolate. What does that crunch feel like? Does it feel good? Like sometimes that crunch, when I get really stressed, I have to eat really crunchy food, because I read somewhere that your jaw muscles, your masseter muscles, actually hold a lot of the tension we carry. So when we really crunch, it feels really good because we're releasing some of that tension. So what does this bite of chocolate feel like for you? Allow it to sit, allow it to melt. Now I want you to think for a minute how many pieces of chocolate you've eaten in this week, this month, this year. How much of it did you notice? Imagine if this 1 square of chocolate has all this power to evoke these kind of sensory experiences for us. 1 piece or 1 square of chocolate. Think of all the sensory experiences, the pleasures that we're not having, that we're not allowing ourselves to, that the world is stopping us from having. The next time you eat a piece of chocolate, I would like you to pause, slow down, and if possible, really, really, really experience the chocolate and the pleasure that our bodies are capable. This is your body giving you this pleasure over 1 square of chocolate. Think of the pleasure that it's capable of. When you feel ready, open your eyes. That was a chocolate meditation, my friends. And for the final meditation of the evening, I will hand you over to Amba. We're going to get the mic over for you, Amba, because Amba wanted to stand up and do the meditation, which is great.
This looks like something getting into the yoni, right? Woo! I got it. Yeah. Can you hear me? Hopefully I'll get here. How are you all feeling? Good? Yeah? Are you ready for the next part of the meditation? Come on. I just want you to really feel the weight off from your body. If you're carrying any mobiles, please kindly keep it aside. This is your time. Any bags, keep it aside. Nobody is going to steal you. Just get it off. Feel light. Because, this is a very good sacred union of Teen Devya, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Kahly. Now, you're about to experience the real destruction and creation of a negative and positive energy. Are you ready to destroy the negative energy in your life? Yeah? And are you ready to welcome the positive energy in your life? So I just wanted to ask, who all came from a yoni? Raise your hands. And who all have a yoni? Raise your hands. And who all believes in a yoni as a manifestation of the goddess? Raise your hands. Amazing. Thank you so much for this beautiful energy. So I want to tell you something. We have 3 granthas, which are Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. So as we say, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Kahly. Saraswati is Brahma. Vishnu is Lakshmi. Now Rudra is me. So if you're ready to disperse all the negativity and do a psychedelic breathwork and a meditation with me, you can raise and stand up and see how it feels once you spread your legs, just like in a V shape. Thank you so much. I'm so honored everybody stood up. I was feeling like if there is someone that cannot, that would be So I really want you to activate your hands, 2 palms, because you have the 5 elements in your hands, and then just open up to the universe, because the universe is active now. I really want you to understand whole of the universe is in your universe. Or if there are men in your, I'm not English, so in your dick. So this 5 fingers represents the 5 elements which we are made up of. Now I want you to slowly close your eyes and understand that you are the goddess. You are the child of the goddess. No matter how judgmental you are that you are not, I believe you are, else you wouldn't be here. So I really want to feel the warmth that is being produced from the center of your palm, from the universe and to the universe. So there is a big energy ball that is being created. You might feel like moving your body, moving your chest, moving your breast, whoever, whatever you are, and just move a little bit, like front and back, so as moves your yoni. Front and back, and moves your yoni. Front and back, along moving your yoni. Now, there is 3 kinds of breath work you will be doing with me. The first one is you breathe in through your yoni. If you want to feel your yoni a bit more, you can spread your legs a bit more and breathe like... This is called fuck it meditation, by the way. So you're fucking the negativity that has been created by others and by your own loved ones or your ancestors that couldn't get hold of you, and being created this nonsensical limiting beliefs that you're not good enough, or you're not worthy enough, or you don't deserve enough. Come on, let's do it. Spread your legs wide as possible and breathe your yoni 8 times, the infinity that you can count within your fingers. Now, it goes this way. You breathe in twice and breathe out once. Like, now this is the fuck it position. Spread as wide as you can. And this is the time where you believe you're the goddess and you are helping your ancestors, your grandmothers and the great-grandmothers or the great-grandfathers that have suffered through the collective trauma of war, survival, not having enough, or the betrayal in the relationship. So your next generation will not suffer. The breathing exercise goes like this. You breathe once and you fuck it twice. I want everybody to say the name of Kahly that is right here in the presence of the divine yoni. Suck your yoni up like this and Jai Ma Kahly. Jai Ma Kahly. Jai Ma Kahly. I deserve enough. I am worthy enough of love. I am enough for who I am. Because I am the creation of the divine. Better nobody fucks around me because I have the fucking power to fuck them over because the fuck is the ultimate reason why I am here in my DNA. And just relax yourself. Let your hands go down and see the vibration of the energy of Ma Kahly that is vibrating right from your feet, right from your toes, that is coming slowly upward, the positive energy from your ancestors that love you and embrace you for who you are, that has been heard your soul voice to come here today. To embrace the power and listen the message that you are here for a higher purpose. Nobody can block you or attack you in any way because they are here to guide you and help you to move forward in your life because you are the divine creation that has come to resolve the unresolved in your lineage. You are the special soul that is being chosen by your ancestors. So tell yourself, be kind and embrace yourself. That little girl or the little boy that is right in front of you that is trying to really embrace you from a long time. It's time to embrace that little girl and the little boy that you were being once and that is being told every name and shame. Now it's time to embrace as a grown-up and say, I love you. I understand you, what you have gone through. And I believe everything that you have gone through. You don't have to justify. But it's time to rectify. There are only 2 pains in the world. The pain that will make you cry or the pain that will make you fight back. I'm the second one. Are you the second one? Raise the energy to embrace your little girl or little boy that is there with you and be the mother or the father or the parent or the goddess that you wanted to be. There is no one that will trust you other than yourself. Remember that. And let your hands feel the love, not the fear from the society or the limiting belief that has been fucked up in your head. Just say, fuck it. I believe in myself. I believe why I am here for a limited time, for a limited lineage, on a limited source, because I am the unlimited. The known, unknown reason why I am here in a human form to experience the human lineage of the world that exists on this plane. And I respect my pain because there is a power behind it. Nobody has to teach me how to live because I know I deserve love, and I will fight back everything my ancestors have gone through, and my children will be protected as I protect my inner child. Jai Ma Kahly, Namaste. It's a beautiful message from Ma Bagalamukhi, who is a Stambhana Vidya, or that one that just makes the world stop. So I just want you to feel her energy for a moment so you are protected. Om Halrim Bagalamukhi Sarvadushtanam Vacha Mukham Padam Stambaya Jifam Kilaya Buddhim Vinashaya Halrim Om Swaha. Om Halrim Bagalamukhi Sarvadushtanam Vacha Mukham Padam Stambaya Jifam Kilaya Buddhim Vinashaya Halrim Om Swaha. Om Halrim Bagalamukhi Sarvadushtanam Vacham Mukham Padam Stambaya Jifam Kilaya Buddhim Vinashaya Halrim Om Swaha. It means you're protected from every word and every negativity that is coming towards you. And you're protected in such a way that Goddess herself embraces you in the pure love that you deserve, that you are worthy enough, and you're the ultimate source of life. Namaste. And thank you so much for being here.
Wow. So we had the jingle meditation, the chocolate meditation, and finally the fuck it meditation. Thank you all so much for being such a beautiful audience, for going along with every single thing that we've asked you to do today. You've kind of been so lovely about it. Massive thank you. A few little announcements before we leave the room. One is we're continuing the party, because I think this is a party and it should continue, at a bar called the Gas Station, which is literally opposite the venue. So if you come out of King's Place, it's bang opposite. So I've booked a table from 4 p.m. Anybody that wants to come, please join us. If you liked what you experienced today, we're going to be offering what we think of as a universe workshop. Amba and I are going to do it together. If you'd like information or details of when it's going to be, what more about it, email us. I'm at email@soulsutras.co.uk or DM either of us. Amba is on Instagram as Amba Kahly. I'm on Instagram as Soul Sutras. Kahly Amba. Sorry, corrected. Kahly Amba. So DM either of us or email us and we'll send you more information. If you'd like to connect with any of us, Seema is a global superstar on the internet, coming up to 1 million followers. So you can message Seema on Instagram, on TikTok, and where else? Yeah.
I think it's just easier if they message you because unfortunately I haven't learned how to start using TikTok. So I've started the account, but I haven't used it yet. and
I've got it sorted. TikTok, 1,400 followers. It's good, right?
Yeah, and also, I'm sorry, the DMs get lost because there's a lot of chaos in those DMs.
Yeah, I can imagine the kind of DMs she gets, So, I might have seen one or two of them. But yeah, you know where Seema is. So if you want to connect or ask any questions, connect with me and I can connect you with her. You know where I am, soulsutras.co.uk. Don't forget to listen to Masala Podcast, all of you, because shows like this only happen. Thank you. Tell all your friends about it. Share it among your community. Because I do this because I have a huge sense of purpose in the world. Like I feel like I was put on this planet to do this work for us, for our people. And I will do this until my dying breath. Like I mean that. I'm not just saying that to be dramatic. I genuinely mean that. So support us because that's the only way we kind of keep going forward. So share. So again, like I said, connect with me. Email at soulsutras.co.uk. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, soulsutras. Amba has already told you her Instagram. She's also got a website.
But I want you to, everybody mail her because I'm a nutter. You must have seen.
Just send you some Sanskrit mantras that you don't understand. But yeah, we're here to answer any questions you might have, any feedback, any suggestions. And before I go, we've almost run out of time. I was going to do a Q&A, but I don't know if we've got time for a Q&A. She's saying no, so no Q&A. I want you to go away today with your own soul sutra. Like I feel like we've all got a sutra that helps us in our own life. So was that a particular word that you heard today, a phrase that you heard today from me or my two amazing guests? Was that a sensation you remember from the chocolate, from the jingle, from the meditation that Amba just did? So think about it here, because when you leave, you'll forget. And it's good to kind of internalize this kind of learning. So ask yourself, what is my soul sutra? And think for a minute, internalize it. You don't need to tell anyone. You can write it down if you want or not. But I want you to go away today feeling like pleasure is yours. Pleasure is your birthright, every single one of you. And I want us all to find our way back to pleasure, because we came into the world with pleasure. We've lost it. It's been taken away from us. So happy pleasure journeys. Thank you so much for being here today, for being part of Masala Podcast. The episode will be live on the web, on all the platforms, so you can listen and share with your friends. But massive thank you to you, Seema, for being as wonderful and beautiful and amazing as you are. Thank you so much, Amba, for coming and giving us your bountiful, explosive energy today. Yeah?
This is a new moon in Virgo. It means just go home, write on the paper what you experienced. There could be a message from your ancestors or from your own self, and believe in it. Because the transformational journey starts now.
That's it. Thank you very, very much. Hope to see you at the gas station, some of you. Thank you.